that are available for further follow-up, and a word on the upcoming webinars. We do want to remind people that the PowerPoint will be available on the NAAC website at www.naac.org for your further reference. So you can take notes, but the PowerPoint's going to be available too. So a little bit of ground rules. We do want as much participation as we can get. So as you're having questions, you're having experiences that relate to what we're talking about, as you hear something that you don't think is valid, please jump in and share your thoughts. All you have to do is to say into your phone, I have a question or a comment, and a mirror will be signaled to unmute your line. You can also type into the question box in the panel, and a mirror will be monitoring those, and we'll break in with those questions. So that, again, that white arrow in the red box can be used to either hide or bring back that panel. So let's do a little roll call. If everybody's unmuted, let's see who's on the call. If you could let us know your name, your organization, or organizations if you have more than one, and the roles that you have with those organizations, please. Just jump in.
So I'll have, can we have Angela go first? Hi,
sure. I'm sorry. Yes. So my name is Angela Corey. I'm with the Elif Institute here in Atlanta, Georgia. I became a board member a little bit over a year ago, or actually a year ago, last January, and we're an education and cultural center.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz Behrens. I'm the acting director of Alwan for the Arts in New York City, and I do a little bit of everything from administration and fundraising to program planning and event management, and I'm hoping to get more directly involved with our board in the coming year.
Great. And a little bit on you, Mona.
I'm Mona Sahuri, and I'm the executive director of the Arab American Heritage Council in the Flint, Michigan area. And again, me too, I like put my hands in a little bit of everything. I sit on multiple nonprofit organization boards too as well. So I'm doing this not just for my organization, but for me as a board member to also be educated and always refresh my memories of what my duties are really. And then I'm hoping to, I'm hoping to make a summary for my board members that I can pass out in my next board meeting. Hence, everybody's working and nobody could make the webinar. And I'm also joined with me here, Raida Andoni, who's currently an AmeriCorps member, but she's a continuous volunteer with our organization too as well, and looking to hire her also for our organization. And she's also involved with a couple of other organizations in the area, so I thought it would be a very good educational experience for her to be on this webinar.
And can we have her name again, please?
Raida Andoni.
Raida Andoni.
Welcome.
And Raina?
I'm going to spell it for you, Mike.
I'm sorry?
I'll spell it for you. I just typed it so that way you'll know the name.
Okay, hi, my name's Rina Karbat. I'm on the board for the Arab Cultural and Community Center here in San Francisco.
Awesome. And also, this webinar will be recorded. So if you guys would like to kind of get some references or go back to it, we will have it on our website, naac.org. If you would like to share that with other people and other board members as well. So back to Mike.
Okay, good deal. Thanks, everyone. And as when we take a break for questions a little later, we'll see if there's anybody else who's joined us that can introduce themselves. So Clearly, everybody on the call sees this as a topic of interest, of need. So there's probably not a lot of need to talk about the benefits of doing this, but just in case there's something that maybe is a new possibility for anyone on the call, as we think about board members out and about in the community acting as ambassadors for the organization, there's a number of benefits that they can bring back to their organization. One is certainly the finding of more clients for the services of your organization. More donors. We talk an awful lot about, maybe too much, about board members as fundraisers, but everybody that is interacted with is a potential donor. They're people who become more informed, in the process of becoming more informed about the organization, become more likely that on the occasion when they are solicited in any way, they're more likely to say, yes, I know about them. That's somebody that is doing valuable work in the community, and yes, I could say yes to supporting them. So even if a board member is very wary about asking for money, and many of us are, it's no fun. But if you're out and about talking about the organization and the good work that it does, you're helping in cultivating that ground so that when the ask is made, the answer is more likely to be yes. We're all looking for more volunteers, and so that person who hears about the services, hears about the volunteer opportunities, becomes the potential volunteer, even if they're not asked directly. New collaborations. Many of our board members are people who are well connected in the community, and so here are organizations that they interact with, that hear the messages that maybe we can do some work with and build those collaborations, and in the process become not only more efficient, serving more people, but more attractive to funders, especially foundations who love collaboration. Building relationships with funders is pretty obvious, as people who are associated with foundations hear about the organization. The person that the board member is speaking with on maybe a pretty casual basis on a social occasion may sit on a board of a foundation. They don't even know about it. But when they hear about that proposal, might be more likely to say yes. Or might be in a position to say, we're getting a proposal from somebody who should be working with this Arab American organization. Let's ask what kind of relationship they have and encourage that relationship before we fund them. Same thing with relationships with regulators. The people at the state and the city level and the federal level that are making decisions that can impact our organizations. Certainly a more supportive committee or community, and board members who are, because they're having something to do that's real besides show up for meetings, anywhere from once a month to 4 times a year. And maybe sometimes the meetings aren't all that exciting, they aren't all that strategic, but there's something they can do besides go out and ask for money. They can tell people in a very targeted, directed, intentional way about the work of the organization. And the staff are not feeling like they're in it all by themselves. I'm sure the people who on the call who are executive directors can testify that being an executive director for a nonprofit, often you're the only staff person, and it's more than a little overwhelming having many, many hats that you wear. So having your board members engaged as active participants in the communications process takes some of that load off and helps you feel like you're part of a team, not on your own. So the source for sort of the conventional wisdom about boards is an organization that everybody on the call should be very familiar with. If you're not, I encourage you to seek them out. They'll be in the resources section at the end of the webinar, and that's BoardSource. And what they say, amongst the 10 major responsibilities of board members is to enhance the organization's public standing. That is, to be out there making sure, not only out there, but within the organization, making sure that the mission's clear, and then being out in the public talking about the mission and the accomplishments and the goals, because you want to be getting the public to be supportive. That's part of the responsibility of board members. So this should be appearing in the job description and the board orientation and reinforced regularly as one of the things that's expected of each and every board member, not just the people who serve on the communication committee or not just the chairman of the board. So clearly a board position is a volunteer position. And like employees, volunteers always do better when the expectations are clear. If we have to guess about what we're supposed to be doing as volunteers, very often we disappoint the people who are overseeing our work. So as we're interacting with potential board members and incoming board members and ongoing board members, there are a lot of points where we can reinforce those expectations. So in that recruitment process, when we're first talking to a potential board member, they need to be hearing, this is part of what we're looking for. We don't just want you to show up for a certain number of meetings. We don't just want you to buy tickets to our gala. We don't just want a personal gift from you each year. One of the things that we expect is for you to be a voice for our organization and the community. So we build that into the job description for the board of directors members. Like any volunteer, it's useful for them to have a written job description beyond the bylaws, which only speak typically to the roles of the officers. In the orientation that people receive at the beginning of their service, when they hear about the funding sources and the programs and the budget and everything else, they should also be hearing about, here's what we would like you to be doing out and about in the community and talking about our work. When plans are made for communications, part of that plan should include not only how are we going to use the web, what are we going to print, what public speaking are we going to do, but how are our board members going to be part of getting that message out.
Hey, why are you home? I was going to do it.
You never responded.
What's your
That's why we have mute, because we're all busy. We're all doing lots of things. Leadership messages. On a regular basis, the leadership, typically the chairman of the board, should be talking and reinforcing with people on the board at the meetings and elsewhere, and including one-on-one conversations. This is something that we encourage you to be doing. And a great way to do that is in the form of recognition. In a very public forum like a board meeting, to talk about a nice piece of community outreach that a board member did since the last meeting, and hold that up as a model for other board members while they're recognizing the work of that individual. And then there's something that's part of the legal responsibilities of a board member, and that's called the duty of loyalty. And all that means is that when decisions are made within an organization, particularly within the board of directors, that you support those positions. You may have disagreed. You may have spoken out against that decision in favor of a different decision in the board. You may have voted against it, but once that decision has been made, you need to support that decision out and about in the community. So you are challenging within and you're supporting outside. If it's a decision that you disagree with so strongly that you can't get on board and support it outside the organization, then you need to consider resigning from the organization if you can't get a reversal of the decision. So some of the ways to do clear expectations. In terms of the planning and oversight, the board of directors needs to be a diverse group that's reflecting the stakeholders in other parts of the community. so that as you have a community that, for example, is reflecting different countries of origin, and maybe that community is changing. Maybe there's a new Yemeni population that's coming in, or Iraqi population, or Egyptian population. If your organization is about reflecting the total community and serving the total community, one of the things that people are going to be looking for is, does the board reflect that wide community? And I've even seen organizations that on their board list, in a very public way, like on their website, are indicating what are the countries of origin for the people on their board, so that they're reinforcing that it's a widely diverse organization. And part of that, going back to communications, is we all travel in circles that look a lot like us. Our friends look like us. And if we want people to be reaching out to particular communities, those communities is very, very valuable if they're reflected on the board, so that those people can take those messages back into their own social circles. We need to articulate what are the communications goals, both short-term and long-term. Is there a communications committee? Is that a vehicle that makes sense? David LaPiana, who's one of the leading lights in nonprofit management as a consultant and trainer, somebody I happen to like a lot, says that we can get by with only 3 committees on our boards. And you can see them there. Internal Affairs, which takes care of all the finance, not including audit, which should be separate. Human Resources, and Facilities, if you have facilities. External Affairs, which would include all the communications type functions, fundraising and marketing, and then governance. Just as an aside, he's not a big fan of executive committees because sometimes over time they can usurp the governance responsibilities of the board itself. But just a little reflection of some ways that you can construct the structure around communications while not letting any of the board members off the hook in terms of being engaged in the communications function. But it's part of the board's responsibility to take those plans for external communications and approve them and oversee that over time. Not micromanage it, not fool around with the content of copy and that sort of thing, but that falls to the staff. But to make sure that good communications is happening, because that's a major piece of the success of any organization. So before we take a little break for questions, what are some of the things that we need to provide the board members so that they can go out and fulfill this function? One is to let them know what it is we want them to be saying. What are the key messages? At what point do we want to have people start talking about the gala fundraiser that we have annually? At what point should they be talking about sponsorships with people who are potential sponsors? And then at what point do they shift over to ticket sales? So what are the key messages in getting them on board with those? Give them an elevator speech. Everybody should probably knows what an elevator speech is. It's that very short description of your organization and what it does and why it's important that can take place between the first floor and the third floor as you're on an elevator with someone. Everybody should be prepared to share what they're involved with anybody that they run into. Giving people materials, and we'll describe later what some of those materials might be. Making sure that people have up-to-date financial information. Where's your funding coming from? What does your budget look like? And making sure that they understand that financial information on an ongoing basis, not just the finance committee or the treasurer. Everybody is responsible for knowing how do we stand, what's our budget look, how are we doing on our budget, and that sort of thing. Making sure that people have up-to-date information. if the organization is about to take a PR hit from a story in the paper, if somebody has just filed a suit, if somebody's just been fired, if something else is going on that's very positive, we just got a major grant, we just formed a new partnership, making sure that the board members are the first people to hear about that, so that they don't, so they can be proudly talking to other people or explaining in a more negative situation what's going on. The board members are the owners of the organization, and they should be the people most in the know, because they're going to have to be able to answer those questions from people and speak out in a proactive way. They should know who are the authorized media spokespeople. Most organizations have designated a couple people to speak to the media on behalf of the organization. And it isn't all board members. It isn't all staff. It's typically the executive director, the media, the communications person, if there is one, and even though they may wear many hats, and the chairman of the board of directors. But whoever that is, people should, the board members should know who they are and have their contact information, so that if they run into a media person who wants a comment, who wants to know something about the organization, particularly if it's a controversial situation, that they are not speaking on that occasion. They are referring people to those authorized media spokespeople. They need to know who to refer folks to for further information, so that if there is a cultural event coming up, for example, and a person they're speaking to socially or in a business situation wants to know more about the coming cultural fair that's happening, or the family gathering, or the concert, or whatever it is, that they know where more information is available. And then provide them with training if necessary. It could be that it would be useful for them, if they don't have a lot of experience in public speaking, to shadow somebody who has experience, or to go along with them on a call to solicit a donation, that sort of thing. Maybe people need to go to a little workshop on public speaking if they're going to be part of the communications loop. So it's an investment that may pay off for you. And then give people motivating experiences. If people have a chance to see the services firsthand, maybe they go to a citizenship class, they go to a concert when they don't always do that. They have a chance to see the work of the organization on a first-hand basis. People become very motivated and very much in a position to be able to tell that story in a very colorful and emotional and effective way without naming names of clients and that sort of thing. So, Amira, let's unmute everybody and ask for sharing and questions at this point.
Okay, is there anyone with any questions? I'd like to participate. I don't have any concerns.
I have a participation. I think Mike brought some very good, couple of very good points, especially about the elevated speech and about the board members reflecting the community. We just had our annual meeting at the Heritage Council, and we voted on making sure that we diversify our board to reflect 20% of it. We wanted to make sure that it reflects the community, that they don't have to be Arab American, they could be of African American descent, or let's say Hispanic American, so forth, or white Americans. That way, you know, you are also representing the community, because this organization services everybody. So, however, we wanted to make sure that we still maintain the majority of it being an Arab American board members, but I thought it was a very wise decision to incorporate 20% of the composition of the board from different ethnic backgrounds. So I just want to say that Mike was right on. Well, I thought he was right on at least. So, my opinion.
Good point, Mona. Most of our organizations serve the wider community, especially with cultural programming, and so it makes a lot of sense to reflect that wider community. And even for social services, which may serve predominantly the Arab American community, there are certainly folks who are not Arab American who think that's a worthwhile thing to do or are potential supporters. It would be useful if everybody who has a question or a comment or an observation to share would identify yourselves. Wouldn't you do that?
Mike, this is Liz, and I have a question as well, which I posted by text. I'm wondering how you balance the need to have a diverse board that reflects the community with the need to also have board members who are able to meet their financial commitments. And our give or get is pretty high, which means that our current board is pretty universally from a socioeconomic demographic that isn't highly representative.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. I'm particularly a big fan of, rather than having a set number for an annual donation expectation, to have a phrase like a significant personal gift, and that means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. For some people, a significant gift might be $10,000. For other people, it might be $100. And as a proportion of their income, my experience has been that people of lower income are more generous than people of upper income. But it's a mistake and a little insulting to let anybody off the hook and saying, mm-hmm. well, we don't expect our low income members or our student members to make a gift. We expect everybody to make a gift, especially knowing that when we go to funders like foundations, we have to be able to say, or it's hugely beneficial to be able to say 100% of our board members gave last year. The foundation doesn't care how much, they care about the proportion.
Mm-hmm.
We never, like in our board, we never have really a hard time making sure that we have 100% participation in terms of financial contributions from our board members. However, the little bit of a challenge that we have usually is for them to cultivate other potential sponsors. Mm-hmm. It's always a challenge for them to go out there and ask, especially some people sit on different boards. So they're not really, even though they are a great face of the organization, great picture of the organization, and if the organization happens to come up, they will be great spokespersons for that organization. However, I haven't encountered anybody who was able to bring on a significant amount of donation as a board member, which is the frustrating part a little bit as an executive director, where everything is left for you to do, left for you to cultivate. And it's fine. I mean, it's all right. You know, we do the work. That's what we're here to do. However, that's been one of the things that was a little bit more challenging. And when you sit down in your board meetings, I mean, you can write it down. Like we have like a board expectation type of router. You know, what is the expectation? You know, the participation, the financial participation, this. But then, how do you sit across from a board member and tell him you haven't met those expectations? Especially when, for example, you have, let's say, at the beginning of the new year, you have your annual board meeting. And you recognize that there's maybe one or two individuals on your board who have not really been who have not been contributing as much as you would like them to. So how do you tell them, oh, thank you so much for your service, but we think that we might be able to cultivate a couple of other people who might help us more, you know, in a very diplomatic way, because they have, you know. So that's been a little challenging for us in the past couple of months, with with us thinking of strategically what we want to do for the next few years, and with us preparing also for our annual meeting. It was a little challenging for us to figure out a way, even though we have all these expectations ready and stuff like that, how do you go out to tell somebody without pissing them off, telling them, hey, you haven't met our expectations, you're not a valuable board member, or I don't want to say valuable board member, but you're not a contributor to the organization, I mean, in any way.
Yeah, I hear you. It's another whole topic. What I will say is it's not the role of the executive director to have that conversation. It's the role of the board chair or the chair of the fund development committee. It's their peer. And whether somebody raises money in a particular way, including getting sponsorships, is one part of that assessment of how contributing is that person. They may do a million other things, including make a personal gift. So I'd encourage that when the nominating committee is sitting down, looking confidentially at who do we ask to come back and who do we say thanks very much and goodbye, that's one of the considerations. But those decisions are being made by their peers, and that's where the pressure is coming from. And I'll let you know that there'll be an announcement later this week on a forthcoming in-depth piece of training on securing corporate sponsorships.
Okay, that's cool.
So, other questions or comments, observations, experiences? Okay, let's go back to mute and finish up with a few things, and then we'll have another time at the end for more questions and sharing. So some examples of what those key messages might be that we're asking the board members to go out and share. One might be during the time when you're doing strategic planning or community needs assessment. We want your ideas. Now clearly that's just a very short way of stating that message, but it's a message that people can take out into the community and say, you know, we're doing this activity, here are the ways that you can be engaged, and we need your thoughts so that we can move forward as an organization. Another example is we want you to volunteer. We have specific opportunities. Here's where you can go to get more information, for example, our website. But we think that that being an efficient provider of services includes having volunteers engaged. We believe that that members of the community have a lot to offer as volunteers. They're viable providers of services, and so come get involved with us. Another message that we always use is we want your donations. And part of that message may be that we're going to take and be excruciatingly cost effective. We're going to make the most of stretching your donation, your dollar, to get the most bang for the buck. And you see that reflected in things like the advertising of the Salvation Army, where they talk about doing the most good, is the catchphrase that they use over and over again. You can also maybe it's an advocacy message that is the current effort that you're trying to get people on board with. And so there's a particular issue, there's a particular piece of legislation, there's a particular thing that's going on in our community, and we want you to tell your elected representatives about your point of view about this issue. And here's their name and email and their phone number. Or we'd like you to write letters to the editor, and here's an idea of some phrases that you could put in that, things of that nature, so that you give them, you know, give your board members some direction about the kind of communication messages that you'd like them to be doing over the next several weeks, and then change that up from time to time. And in the process, they get the message of being a communicator is an important part of what I'm about as a board member. Okay? So what are some things, some tools that you can give them so that they can be successful besides training? One is the annual report, if you have one, especially if it's not too heavy. So make sure they have copies of that they can spread around. Lots of us are doing most of our communication on the internet these days. So is there something that they can repost on Facebook, or something that they can tweet, something that they can send out as an email forwarded post that is, here's our upcoming event, or here's our upcoming need for donations or need for volunteers, or our public affairs issue, or whatever it is. Giving people business cards. It may not have their name on it. It might say, here's our organization, and it's the name of the title is board member. And they can write in their name and their personal phone number if they would like. There's space for that. But it's, when you think about how people share their identities with one another in social and business situations, they pull out a business card very, very often. Well, here's my business card from the organization where I'm on the board of directors. And this is part of my identity, and this is something I want you to know about. Brochures is pretty obvious, program brochures, organization brochures. Might we think about having a lapel pin? Access has one. And for people who are willing and able to, you know, that's part of their style, it can be a conversation starter. Giving them something to stick on their office wall. Here's a framed certificate that says I'm a board member of this organization. Might again be a conversation starter as somebody comes in their office, or it might just be something that people can see and reflect on and go, oh, this person I'm meeting with is associated with the Heritage Council. They're associated with the Cultural and Community Center. They're associated with the Institute. I didn't know that. Maybe I'll ask a question about them. Maybe next time I get a solicitation from them, I'll think positively about it because I know one of their board members. And then an awful lot of us are using our smartphones and our pads to share information. So giving people stuff that they can put on their phones and put on their iPads, put on their Kindles or whatever it is, that they can whip it out and show. Hey, here's pictures from our last gala, and look how well we showed the names of the sponsors on the banners here. And so as I'm talking with you about the possibility of being a sponsor, or just talking with you about the gala, you can see, oh, sponsorship. I didn't know there were sponsorship opportunities, and maybe I'll think about that. So give people material in forms that it's useful, and recognizing that for men and for many women, they're not going to carry around a huge amount of paper. When I worked for the Red Cross and we were doing volunteer recruiting, we gave people a volunteer recruiting brochure that was folded down into the size of a business card that they could just slip into a wallet, several of them, hand out on occasion, even in the grocery line, and people could unfold it and go, oh, here's all these volunteer opportunities from the Red Cross where I can find more information and how to make a contact. So give people lots of information in formats that they can use it. Quickly, some do's and don'ts on the advocacy front. And this is clearly people can do things as individuals that they cannot do as representatives or on behalf of your nonprofit organization. But here are some things that they should not be doing on behalf of the organization. They cannot endorse candidates for public office. They can do it as individuals, but not on behalf of the organization. They can't make loans or donations to candidates. and they can't sponsor events for a particular candidate, like a meet and greet night, tea at their home. They can do it as individuals, but they should not and cannot be doing it on behalf of your nonprofit organization. But there's lots of things that they can be doing and should be doing. And they're listed there, like encouraging people to register to vote, encouraging people to speak out on issues that matter to them and to the Arab American community, meeting with officials on their issues and that sort of thing. So think about those things. There's some resources that are available for future use. There is an International Journal of Volunteer Administration had a nice little article or study on the public relations roles of nonprofit board members. There are some key websites that I encourage people to go to, and these are good not only for board members as ambassadors, but for lots and lots of other topics. Board Source we talked about earlier. Blue Avocado is a site out of California that you can search for any kind of management or leadership topic. Same thing for the free management library at managementhealth.org. And the NAAC website at naac.org now has a resources section with lots of information. And as usual, I'll say, if you have something that you think is a good resource that that you think would be good to put on there, let us know about it so we can get it up. And then there's a book called Governance as Leadership that I think is really good. It's a very general piece on effective governance and board leadership. So we have a few minutes left. Let's unmute everybody again and have some more time for sharing and questions.
Are there any questions or anything?
And please identify yourself.
This is Amira Gillespie.
I mean everything. Sorry.
I was just trying to see if there is anyone that had any questions or like to add anything.
I may have a question. This is Angela Khoury from Aleph Institute. I'm just a regular board member. And one little challenge I have is often, some board members will commit to do a task, whether to follow up on a contact or whatever things we discussed in a meeting. And then I find myself, I don't know how to follow up, because it didn't happen, and I don't want to sound like the boss, and I don't want it to slip or take the lead and do it myself. And it's a very tricky situation as peers, and I'm not the chair of the board to follow up on that. So I don't know what recommendations do you have so that we can keep that engagement, but not, give the sense of responsibility of each one to accomplish what they promised to do.
Yeah. Let me throw that out to the rest of the audience. Any thoughts about the answer to that question? Okay, let me just suggest one possibility is to make sure that there's a timeline on that activity, so that if you said we would like all of that follow-up to happen by February 28th at the latest. There's nothing wrong with you as the person sort of in overall charge of that activity to make a follow-up contact with that person, say a week before the deadline, asking them, how's it going? And it may be that that's the little tickler, the little reminder, oh my goodness, I forgot I was supposed to do that. I better get on it. Because people get busy. So you're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Clearly, if people don't get the hint and they don't follow up, there's a couple things. One is For the undependable person, they don't get asked to do it anymore. It becomes something that the board leadership can follow up on one-on-one, not in a public way, but on the side on a one-on-one basis if it's important enough, and it becomes a consideration in sort of the future career of that person with your organization.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
Hi, this is Rena with the Arab Cultural and Community Center. I'm a board member, and I think one of the things I would like to know how to address is a lot of these tips that you give is a lot of, I think what to provide the board members with so that they can be better board members.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that that's something for, more for what the ED can provide the board members with.
Or a fellow board member can provide. Say you're the person responsible for communications.
Okay. Well, because I feel like, I guess because a lot of our board members are new, so they need, there is a lot of, I feel there's a lot of training that needs to be done just as far as like, what it is, a lot of the services that the organization provides that some of the board members may not be aware of. Yep. So I think some of it does need to come from the executive director and the staff, but they're all really busy. So I always feel like when we go to ask them for stuff, it's just giving them more work to do in their eyes. So what can we do to help them so that we can make sure that the board gets this information?
Okay, so there's a couple approaches. One is the board orientation, which typically happens at the beginning of the service experience, preferably before the first board meeting.
Yeah, ours kind of did something. They didn't do an orientation. They just kind of handed us a folder with a bunch of information, which I don't think a lot of board members read.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like an actual orientation meeting would be better?
Yeah, exactly. And I would encourage that if the staff's interested in sort of recreating the orientation or refining the orientation, we'd be happy to help with that. There's lots of good models that are available, and you can do something in an hour or two. An alternative is to make to have an education session at the beginning of each board meeting, and just take 15 minutes or 10 minutes and do a brief on a particular program, a particular topic, so that everybody can pick up on that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And then there's lots of, clearly there's the, sending stuff out, but you don't know what happens to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And just as a general rule with orientation, in terms of the material you give people, it's an ongoing reference, but like volunteer manuals and other things of that nature, people really need to hear direction about what it's important to pay attention to. Yeah. So that, for example, in a board orientation piece, a huge thing to pay attention to is the budget. And getting familiar with that, okay. As opposed to every program brochure in depth for the last 20 years.
Great, thank
you. So give people, direct their attention.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Other suggestions for answering the last question? Okay. We've got a few upcoming webinars. We encourage you to register and to spread the word. We're on kind of a theme here for 3 webinars on working with the board. So the next one in February is going to be on the relationship between the executive director and other staff in the board. And then in March, we'll do board succession, how to get people to say yes to leadership and groom them for leadership positions on the board. So those are coming up. You'll be receiving invitations. Please spread the word. Are there other ideas for topics for webinars that we should be considering?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, so we're always up for ideas. So my email is mcorbin@accesscommunity.org, and you can always go to the NAAC website and look for the staff. But we need to we need to be responsive to the needs of our constituents, and the best way we can do that is to hear from you about what would be useful. So, any closing questions or comments from anybody? Okay, I thank you for especially the people who shared, and we will look forward to hopefully seeing you in a forthcoming activity.
Thank you, Mike, for putting it on for us.
Thank
you, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.